When I was working in consulting, I was given a function. I was a support guy, so when we implemented an SAP system, I had to stabilize it with my team of SOS kind of folks that we would do triage on all the problems coming in, and sort of like an ER or system problems, and then we would start solving the ones that required patches and upgrades. And when you implemented some of these systems, you could have all of a sudden 100 trucks outside of a warehouse because you couldn't load material in, or you could have thousands of customers that couldn't get their orders in. So it was important. And I remember that I did it once and gave me all the money, and I wrote the book. I wanted to turn it into a case study, so I actually wrote the book. I became the global expert. I went in and pulled in from all the projects in the world, and I got the best methodologies and the best projects, and I got all those decks, and I went through all of them, and then I made a solution for our project that was better than everything that existed across the world. So I became the global expert on this particular thing, and I did it again and again. And in consulting, you do things twice and you're an expert, and you do it 3 times and you're a demigod. And so yes, I was the guy that knew everything about support, and people would call me from around the globe. So they sent me to this new project just before Y2K, 1999, and it's a government project, and they go come up with the support solution, and compared to what I had, it had 10 times more people and sites and locations and 10 times less resource available. My mental model, I was the expert and I was running it as a movie in my mind, and all of a sudden they would be like, game over, you know? It was a disaster. I would have visions of like the 7 horses of the apocalypse descending upon this company. I was like, and again, and I ran through all scenarios, and I turned right and I turned left, and I did this and I did that, and I couldn't figure it out, and I couldn't solve it. And I came 3 days later and I talked to the partner, and I told him, this is going to be an apocalypse. Problems at the factory, problems with the customer service, problems with the materials, like nothing could talk to each other. It was a hellish scenario. I just didn't have enough people to cover a big bang implementation like that in all areas with a company of the breadth of this company, and we were not prepared. I went back and I said, we can't do it. And obviously he responded, what? We have to do it. Are you kidding? We have to do the implementation because it's the Y2K millennium bug. The whole thing is we have to implement it before Y2K. And I said, yes, but I get it. And he's like, no, don't worry. Nobody's going to blame you if this thing goes south. And all of a sudden, he said it in a way that I just knew I was going to be the scapegoat. And all of a sudden I said, oh my God, they're going to blame me if this thing goes south. So I went back and I started brainstorming again, running through the scenarios again and again and again. I must have looked like I was a walking zombie, because I was literally like blank stare, and I was running calculations and scenarios and different movies in my mind, and again. I couldn't sleep and I couldn't eat, and it was just like 3 days of nonstop pain. And what I learned later is that my mind, once it understands that what exists will be impossible, then it tries to create what doesn't exist. So you push it. It has to understand that this is a no-win scenario. This scenario has no solution yet with all the existing knowledge that there is. And so it creates new knowledge. It draws and creates connections to new areas of your brain. It taps into knowledge from other areas that may have nothing to do with what you were doing. And it tries to pull from nature and from a lesson that you got from a picnic and another lesson that you got from summer camp, 20 years ago, and it starts pulling in different things. It's amazing. And I came up with a solution 3 days later. And this was 1999, so the internet was just starting, and the solution we came up with was for a distributed help desk over Lotus Notes. You believe it? We still have Lotus Notes. A distributed help desk, the equivalent of what it would be now, an online help desk. And at the time, it was a novel solution. Not only did it create a help desk solution that allowed us to cover 10 times more sites and people with 10 times fewer resources, but it also ended up becoming the new standard across the firm globally for help desk support solutions. I don't know if it's a methodology per se, but it is an anecdote that I wanted to share so that you could understand that at the end of the day, if you try all the roads and it's impossible, then after they tell you it's impossible, that's when the real creativity begins.